With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
When we go to a road course in the Precision Racing League NASCAR Cup Series, it sometimes feels like we can just write Abner Acosta at the top of the results sheet before the race even starts. But lately, a road course challenge has been brewing from his teammate Trent Dinkle and others, and we'll see if tonight is the night where the tire wizard is finally cursed. Welcome to round 4 of the PRL NASCAR Cup Series, live from the Roval at the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. Hi everybody, Joey Tevin here alongside Josh Lee in the booth with our producer, Josh Lee, behind the scenes. Well, Josh, we're here at the Roval. It kind of speaks for itself. We saw the calamity that happened at the end of the real Cup race tonight, but we've got a real duel up front between the two teammates who fought for last season's championship.
And I think it's going to be a really interesting battle to watch because this track is so interesting. I mean, the Charlotte Roval now since 2018 has been the elimination race in the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs and the NASCAR Xfinity Series playoffs at that as well. And it's just been such an amazing track to watch these cars go around on because it is such a unique road course. I mean, yes, they're turning left, yes, they're turning right, but you've got banking, you've got hard braking zones, you've got fast corners. It really is a hodgepodge of everything we love about a road course right into the center of the Charlotte Motor Speedway.
And this is the only road course we go to this season, so if you're Abner Acosta or Trent Dinkle or Josh Conker, who's not here tonight, you're probably a little bit disappointed about that fact, but after tonight, we go to the usual NASCAR tracks up until Phoenix, and then we go to Kansas after that, and we do the season finale at Chicagoland. Originally an iRacing Super Speedway finale, but the drivers revolted a little bit and got that taken away, and we'll go to Chicagoland, which I personally think will be a pretty good finale and probably a far more normal finale than at iRacing Super Speedway would be. But here are those playoff standings. The round of 4, you can see Chicagoland. That is where we will decide the playoff champion, but right now the playoff grid, it's pretty straightforward for the top 3. You can basically write Dinkle, Acosta, and Regan into the round of 4 unless things go horrifically wrong. But below that, between Harvey down to Papineau, there's a lot of points between them, but lots and lots of things can change. If you're a driver like James O'Brien or Skip Gandy, only a few points above the cut line, or if you're Mike Witt, a few points below, all of that can shake around. But it's not just the playoff standings that we have to worry about this season. Of course, all the drivers are probably thinking about that playoff championship, but there also is a Season 4 championship to fight for. Currently, your championship leader is actually, I believe it's Jeff Hollingsworth. The points are a little bit screwed up after last week. I think there were some reviews of penalties and the like. So Jeff Hollingsworth or Richard Regan Jr., either one of them is technically the championship leader just in Season 4 here in 2022. Then Josh Conker, Pat Harvey, Trent Dinkle. It's early in the season. We've only run 3 rounds. This doesn't mean all that much. Heck, last season's champion, Abner Acosta, is currently 15th in the championship. So that's going to tell you how much things are going to change in the next 6 weeks. And we can also talk about the team standings here. You thought the driver standings were close? Well, wait until you see how close the team standings are. Just a couple of points separate the top couple of teams. Top 3 separated by 14 points. OGR Racing has had a great season so far. Hollingsworth, of course, in the lead. Bentley Glazer has been strong. Charlie Woods has been strong. Private label Team Hype, of course, with Acosta and Dinkle in the gang. And Phase 2 Chassis Works with Regan and Powell and the whole gang there. And then SG Esports, their 2 squads are actually tied for 4th. The other private label Team Hype squad, the black team, is 6th. Then it's 2 Love Racing, 7th and 8th. And YS Motorsports and Car Ramrod. Look for them to move their way up the sheets as well over the course of the season down there in 9th and 10th. Well, that's all the housekeeping out of the way, other than the series format, of course. A fixed series this season. That changes sometimes here in the PRL NASCAR Cup Series. It always depends. Are we going to do an open series this season or a fixed series this season? Well, it is a fixed series this season, so it all comes down to the driver. 5-minute qualifying currently underway right now. There is a time limit, 90 minutes. We won't reach that tonight because there will be no yellows, because it is a road course race, and we will not throw manual yellows here tonight, even if there is a huge track blockage. But anyway, as qualifying rages on right now, we have to thank all the people who make every single Precision Racing League broadcast possible. Of course, first and foremost, the VCO, the Virtual Competition Organization, helping us out here at RaceSpotTV as always, and helping make every single PRL broadcast possible this season and every season on RaceSpotTV. This coverage is also brought to you by Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision5 coupon code. PRL coverage is also brought to you by Racebox Sim Racing. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, Racebox Sim Racing's button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision5 coupon code. And from Racebox to RaceLab apps. RaceLab helps you to improve your driving skills. With modern overlays, race statistics, and native VR integration, you can get the best out of iRacing. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. And from RaceLab to the Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products provide an incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat with the Butt Kicker. And last but always not least, Ninja Trader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Of course you are. Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, Ninja Trader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. Ninja Trader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. It is now time to start tracking the driver's performance here, as we've got about 2.5 minutes or so, about 3 minutes to go in qualifying. As I mentioned at the head of the broadcast, Abner Acosta is usually the driver you look for here on these road courses, but the driver at the top of practice, the driver currently at the top of qualifying, not named Abner Acosta.
It is not, and it currently at the top, it's Trent Dinkle, albeit by not a ton of time. And we'll take a look at the fastest times currently. Is the 26 of Mike Witt is going to abandon that lap, and Richard Regan Jr. looks to be the only other driver on the track currently trying to put down some more times. But I mean, how about that fastest time at a 1:18.986? The only driver to go into the 1:18s currently is the driver of the number 9. As the 56 dives his way into the backstretch chicane. This is going to be one of the problem areas on this track. Joey, because we saw it in the cup race today. We see it here in the sim. That is one of the toughest braking zones to get stopped for, and one of the thinnest portions of this track. It is going to be very difficult for those drivers to navigate their way through the backstretch chicane. And how about this hard braking zone off of oval turn 4, right down into the infield at Charlotte Motor Speedway, then right back across the start finish line. That's the lap for Richard Regan Jr. He'll lay down, and not going to be a good enough time to get up into the board, and actually a time disallowed there, so he will not have a time in for qualifying.
Yeah, Richard Regan Jr. not actually allowed to qualify this week because of a penalty from Talladega last week. So 2 weeks in a row, Richard Regan Jr. has been disallowed from qualifying. And if there's a bad track to be disallowed from qualifying, this is probably one of them. You saw his teammate Sean Powell there cross the line in P8. Haven't seen much of Sean Powell on the road courses. Of course, we saw him last season in the PRL when we ran a couple road courses. We went to Mid-Ohio in the trucks. We went to Watkins Glen and a couple others in the Cup Series, but still, It's very different to see Sean Powell ringing that car around a road course compared to an oval, and he's going to set it in P8. Right ahead of him was Joe Hoggard. Up ahead, Brandon Walter, one of the private label team hype drivers. Looks like he's just finishing off his run. And Josh Daniels, one of those drivers who is always strong on the road courses. Dinkel and Acosta have kind of elevated themselves into their own level right now, but there is still that third spot to battle for, and if they come together, you got to be there to pick up the pieces. And Josh Daniels only needs 15 thousandths of a second right now to jump over Chris Hudson for third.
But is he going to have enough time to get back to the line? He's got 25 seconds. I think he will have just enough time to get this lap in if he doesn't mess up anything through ovals turn 3 and 4 and through the final chicane here at the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. Roval as well down into that final chicane, and just with a couple of seconds to spare, he will get to the line, but will it be enough to improve? That time will not count towards qualifying, and now the checkered flag comes out, Joey, and we are ready to begin the night here at the Charlotte Roval.
Hope you're ready at home. It's Trent Dinkel and Abner Acosta together on the front row. And if that doesn't sell this race, I don't know what will, because that's going to be a titanic battle between two drivers who have really elevated themselves on the road courses for private label team hype ahead of the rest of the field. It's Dinkel ahead of Acosta. Chris Hudson and Josh Daniels form row 2 behind them. Two Love Racing red drivers. Eric Haag, another driver very, very strong on the road courses, is 5th, and Luke Christian is 6th. Joe Hoggard in 7th. Sean Powell 8th. His Phase 2 Chassis Works teammate Tyler Justice is 9th, and Matthew Long rounds out the top 10. Clayton Ham, a driver we always see road course racing here in the Precision Racing League as well, alongside Pat Harvey. Lucky number 13 went to Mark Kalin, who races in about 3 different road course PRL series this season. Robert VCO Jr. is alongside him. Then Eric Papineau, Waldo Walden, Skip Gandy, and Joao Guerra round out the top 18. Brandon Walter was 19th, Byron McDonald was 20th, and Adam Zemke was the last driver to set a lap time, but something tells me that was not a representative lap time, 11 seconds off the pace. Steve Loving, Charles Sumner, Mike Witt, Tom Amasi, and Richard Smith, and Byron Johnson as well, all did not set a qualifying lap time, and Richard Regan Jr. was explicitly disallowed from setting a qualifying lap time because of a penalty from last week. Tim Collier and Charlie Woods also received penalties, but they will have to serve them next week because they are not here in the field tonight. But there are 28 NASCAR Cup Series next-gen cars here on the grid to go racing at the Charlotte Roval. It's going to be a race of picking up the pieces behind Dinkel and Acosta maybe, but as I hinted at, there's always the possibility of them two coming together and suddenly the race is blown wide open.
That could happen. We've seen it happen before at the Charlotte Roval. I mean, think back to the first ever finish that the Charlotte Roval had in the real world in 2018 when it was 2 drivers coming to the line. Jimmy Johnson, Martin Truex Jr., they touch coming into this final chicane, and they end up going wrecking, and Ryan Blaney ends up stealing the win from the third. Anything can happen at this track, and anything can happen in the PRL Cup Series, and I think we're going to see that tonight as the field gets ready to roll off. Let's take a look at the drivers that we've got here on the RaceSpotTV Zoom, and we have Chris Hudson, Mark Kalin, Trent Dinkel, Lou Christian, and Tyler Justice. We'll be riding along with all of them tonight, but I think we're going to be riding along mainly with Trent Dinkel tonight, Joey, as he sets off behind the official iRacing pace car to lead the field around the Charlotte Roval.
And Trent Dinkel always puts a zoom up for us, always so kind. We always get to see his facial expressions in elation and defeat, which is always great to see. So Dinkel and Acosta on the front row here. As mentioned, Abner Acosta, he's the tire wizard of the series. He's the guy who everybody looks to over the course of a long run, whether it's on the road courses, whether it's on the ovals, whether it's at a place like Darlington where the tires are really getting destroyed. Abner is always the class of the field. But his teammate Trent joined private label team hype a couple seasons ago, has kind of learned from the best, and has he bested the best? Well, there are 56 laps awaiting him at the Charlotte Roval tonight to see if the apprentice, so to speak, can beat the master in Abner Acosta.
And we've got a relatively decent-sized race tonight. 56 laps that these 28 drivers will go racing around the Charlotte Roval. And, of course, that is dependent on time, but no full course cautions here as well. So seems like we'll get all 56 laps in roughly about half the distance of the real world NASCAR Cup Series event today. And that's a lot of time. That's a lot of wear and tear on these drivers. That's a lot of wear and tear on the tires. That is going to be a handful of trips down into the pit lane for both fuel and tires. And we'll see how these drivers are going to navigate all of those today as they also navigate this course, which is half oval, half road course, a very fitting Roval name.
Yeah, through NASCAR turn 2 right now, but if you want to do a little bit of road course math, technically this is turn 10 of the road course. So there's got to be some sort of algorithm we can determine to just add numbers to remember all these corner names. But the backstretch chicane, not branded here in iRacing like it is on real life, so we might have to ask one of our Precision Racing League sponsors to give us a new name. How about the Advanced Sim Racing backstretch chicane? We'll see if they sign up for that one. But anyway, the iRacing Porsche pace car is getting ready to get going here. We will not actually skip over the front stretch chicane like they do in real life, because that's not an option on iRacing, unfortunately. That screws things up a little bit. So we will go through the front stretch chicane to start this race. Might cause a little bit of trouble for some of those drivers starting at the back of the field, but these are experienced drivers. Every driver in the field here has lots of road course experience in the Precision Racing League and outside of it. So something tells me they'll be able to figure it out. But Trent Dinkel leads the field to green in that blue private label team hype car. His teammate Abner Acosta on the outside. It's going to be a slow crawl here through the front stretch chicane. Dinkel's probably going to wait for as long as possible as to not unsettle the car here on the start. The green flag is out. Dinkel and Acosta crawl through the chicane, and we're green for 56 laps at the Charlotte Roval. Eric Hogg in the wall. Eric Hogg is in the wall already in turn 1. Looks like he collected a few drivers with him. I think that might have been Tyler Justice following him in. No, that's Joe Hoggard. Turn 1 already striking. He backs into traffic as well. Richard Smith involved. Pat Harvey. Byron Johnson might have got a lick at that as well. Turn 1 of the Charlotte Roval, and calamity's already struck for some of the drivers in the middle of the field.
That is such a danger zone at this track as well, but look at Trent Dinkel in control of this field. Look at Abner Acosta trying to catch up as they work their way onto ovals 1 and 2. And I'm going to try and put a decent gap over Acosta, and it's going to be very, very difficult to try and do, especially down this back straightaway. You want to try and carry so much speed, Joey, but with the way these cars are set up for the road course, they don't exactly like these oval turns. I've seen drivers be lifting through the oval turns here just because the car gets so upset. And speaking of that, Abner Acosta loose off the backstretch chicane. Here comes Chris Hudson to try and battle for second place.
Now is the time to pounce. If Abner Acosta makes a mistake, it's going to be hard to beat him over the course of a long run on the road course. So is Chris Hudson going to be able to pounce here in that familiar Krispy Kreme number 43 through the front stretch chicane for the first time in anger? Not quite going to be able to take advantage of that, but that's a rare mistake from Abner Acosta. It's still early in the race, so would not be a surprise to see him get over that, but still, he might just be a little bit rattled so far, a little bit uncomfortable over those turtles in the chicane here. But we keep on trucking here. 54 more laps to go. Looks like Waldo Walden's in a little bit of trouble in the background. Might have hit the wall in turn 1. But other than that, a little bit of calamity on lap 1. Still seems pretty clean throughout the field, though.
Let's see if we can find out what exactly happened on that opening lap. It looks like it was Joe Hoggard involved, and as well as a couple other drivers. I'm not sure. It just kind of started the way all the Roval wrecks start in that opening corner, which really is just the dive into that opening corner is so difficult to get right. And one driver goes way wide. I think that was Eric Hogg, who then comes back into Joe Hoggard. And I think there was a second incident further back that got Pat Harvey involved. We'll go back here one more time, Joey, see if we can see what happened to him. And oh, he just lost it on the exit of the heartburn turn.
Yeah, I have to imagine that was maybe a little bit of a target fixation early in the race. The brakes, the tires are a little bit cold. You slam on the brakes, the car's not used to it, and it goes P2 at some point during the race. Drivers will change tires because that's just the thing to do in a race this long, but there will be no caution. There will be no stage. It all comes down to green flag strategy here for the entirety of tonight's race.
And that does make it so much more difficult because there is no guaranteed... I don't want to say guaranteed pit stops because they are guaranteed to come down into the pit lane, but I guess guaranteed safe pit stops is the right way to put it, because when you're under caution, you already know you're at least going to have everybody down into the pit lane, and we have issues with Matthew Long, Clayton Ham getting tangled up. But as I was saying, Joey, you know under the yellow flag that you're going to at least be able to keep a good bit of track position, as Robert Besaw in the number 3 also goes up and into the wall in ovals turns 1 and 2. But under the yellow flag, you're able to come down pit road. You won't lose too much time because everybody's slowed down for pace. Under green, that's not possible. Everybody's still going to be full speed on the race course, and it's going to be very difficult to then make those green flag stops. As Abner Acosta sets a new fastest lap, Besaw got in the wall, and there was another issue with Matthew Long and Clayton Ham. We'll take a look at the issue with Long and Ham first, as Eric Hogg comes down into the pit lane.
I'm just glad they stopped wrecking for a second so you could finish your anecdote there,
Very
John.
glad
It's
as
like
well.
they were trying to get you off your game there. But here is Matthew Long. Oh, just a little bit of a hop there, coming out onto the oval, and that is a destroyed next-gen car. That thing was basically driving on 3 wheels, and then Clayton Ham comes on the scene, Besaw comes on the scene, and was there anything they could really do there? That corner's almost completely blind.
Nothing really they could have done after all the incidents start happening in front of him, because, I mean, once that starts, especially for Clayton Ham, he didn't know that 28 was going to start coming down the track. He thought that he would keep it up by the outside wall, and that was definitely not the case. So where we sit now with Trent Dinkle in the 9 in the race lead, it looks like Sean Powell going to lose a spot to Lou Christian as they continue to fight through the top 10. Richard Regan Jr., you mentioned maybe being at a disadvantage for not qualifying or not being allowed to qualify, Joey. Look at him, 9th place currently in the number 56.
Double digits of improvement for Richard Regan Jr., which is rather incredible from that start. And the calamity on lap 1 actually happened at the back, but you saw Richard Regan Jr. in that new pink car for October here for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, made it through everything on lap 1, and he's just been making passes through the field like he knows how to do. He kind of downplays his road course abilities sometimes, but he has made up double digits of spots since the start of this race. He's up into P9. For a driver who's 1 point behind the Season 4 championship lead, for a driver who's in contention for this playoff championship, this is exactly the kind of drive that Richard Regan Jr. needed. Not the drive that Charles Sumner needed, though. Looks like he's looped in at the front stretch chicane.
We'll see what happened to the number 98 here. Looked like a pretty simple loop around, and yeah, up onto the curb, and look at all that wheel hop bouncing up and down. You can't do that in these next gens. If we're in a rallycross car, if you're in a pro off-road truck, maybe, but yeah, in these next gens, they don't really like to bounce that much, so that makes sense why Charles Sumner ended up backwards into the infield.
Good luck there for Mike Witt and Skip Gandy to avoid Sumner as he spun there. There must be a magnet in reverse in the nose of those SGE sports cars, because he just slid through the middle of both of them. And that's actually 2 playoff drivers. Charles Sumner, unfortunately, eliminated from the playoffs after the round of 16, but Witt and Gandy both right around that cut line, so they both need as many points as they can get on this drive tonight. We ride on board, or we ride in Luke Christian's office, to be more specific, as he tries to chase down Tyler Justice for that last spot in the top 5. It was good qualifying for Luke Christian in the top 6, and it's a good race so far. It's been completely consistent. He's avoided any trouble. On lap number 6, he's taken a little bit of a shallower line into this little dip here in the infield, but he's all over the back of Tyler Justice.
Trying to just stay with that number 6. It was one of the big things that the commentators talked about in the real life NASCAR Cup Series race today, is that passing really became a premium with these cars at the Charlotte Roval, especially with how wide these cars are, how tight this course is. You have to be brave with every single pass you make, and if you don't want to be brave, if you don't want to be diving it up the inside of the driver in front of you, then we kind of have to really be patient and wait for that pass to come to you. And as long as Luke Christian can stay within striking distance of Tyler Justice, one small mistake from the 6, which is easy to make at this track, will put the 21 into the top 5.
Getting very, very close to that wall on the exit of the chicane. Every single driver in the field is, but it never gets any less scary to watch it from that angle. Sean Powell in the background just playing with inches there, under braking into the front stretch chicane. Luke Christian actually clips the grass just a little bit on the outside, using every single inch of this track. Hasn't been able to close up Tyler Justice very closely, though. The last lap between the two of them, it was about 0.2 of a difference, 2.5 of a difference, so Christian's definitely closing it down, but visually at least, looks like he's hitting a little bit of a wall here.
And they work their way through the middle portion of the course as well. And you can see Sean Powell trying to be in that battle, but he sits a good bit behind this group as they fight their way now out of the infield section. Still pulling away is the 9 in the front, but Trent Dinkel is not pulling away by too much. I mean, we've been talking about the, the one-on-one battle that we're expecting from Trent Dinkel and from Abner Acosta. We're not really seeing the 9 pull away that much. We're seeing Abner Acosta keep him reeled in as much as possible. How long can Abner Acosta stay at this 1.4 second gap that he's built up? He ran the fastest lap, and last time by, Acosta was faster than the 9 machine. Across the line this time, 1:19.34 or 1:19.32 for Trent Dinkel, 1:19.30 for Abner Acosta. So he's still having his number a little bit more.
You want to talk about evenly matched? It's hard to get more evenly matched than Dinkel and Acosta. On road courses especially, it's extremely impressive to see what Trent Dinkel has accomplished here, to catch up to Acosta, to be able to compete with him for the wins in every single road course we go to, but also on every single other type of track. It's been not the best season for Dinkel and Acosta so far. It's not been the best season for private label Team Hype across the first 3 cup races here in season 4. Dinkel does have a win, but that was a little bit of a weird one at Texas. And Abner Acosta, of course, has had a horrific season, not by his own fault, but he's still 15th in points just because of a lot of bad luck. But they've been the class of the field. Last season, they both fought for the championship, and this is where we expect to see both of them. So hopefully Acosta can close that gap down just a little bit. We can see a real wheel-to-wheel, hand-to-hand combat for the win of this race. But for now, we're going to look at another private label Team Hype driver, Brandon Walter, who's holding down the fort just a little bit further back. He is a playoff driver, so he has to fight for every position here to keep up his chances to advance into the round of 8. But Waldo Walden is giving him very much company. Joe Hoggard on a recovery drive as well, and Skip Gandy. It's a whole train behind Brandon Walter right now.
Waldo Walden, Joe Hoggard, Skip Gandy. You can put a blanket over all of them behind Brandon Walter right now in P11. You can see all 4 of them down the back straightaway into the backstretch chicane and back onto ovals turns 3 and 4. I'm old enough to remember when we first came to the Charlotte Roval and we had that high speed, just kind of fling. It was the NASCAR's version of the Singapore Sling. If anybody remembers the early 2010s, or I guess actually late 2000s now, of F1 racing in Singapore, the Singapore Sling. I feel like the Charlotte Roval backstretch chicane, if you want to call it a chicane, that we had it in 2018, was NASCAR's version of that, and I liked it more. I understand why it's gone, Joey, but man, it was so fun to see those drivers slinging into that corner.
Well, we have the power of simulation here. We have the power to simulate physics, to do things we can't do in real life. iRacing, are you listening? Let's build the old Charlotte, I was about to say Singapore, the old Charlotte road course where it was just a couple of tire chicanes on the oval and they called it a road course. Let's bring that back. But anyway, I'm sure Trent Dinkel's hoping there were a few more chicanes on the track that he would have been able to get by Richard Smith. Acosta gets held up way more, though. Richard Smith was doing his best, I think, to get out of the way, but he absolutely murdered Abner Acosta there. About 1.5 seconds was the gap that Abner Acosta just lost there, because there was nowhere Richard Smith could really go through the final corner.
Now that gap has grown to 1.9 seconds, make it 2 seconds now as Abner Acosta exits that corner of the road course and continues through this new infield section. It used to be a lot more twisty and turny, and really with the Charlotte Roval project, they've kind of refined that infield road course, and now we do take some rallycross cars onto that infield road course here on the iRacing service. Is 3 wide down the front straightaway. How about this into the heartburn turn? Joe Hoggard around the outside gets the better of Skip Gandy and Waldo Walden, but Gandy fights back on the inside, the only playoff driver in this group, trying to get by Joe Hoggard, but the 64 fights back. Crossover from Skip Gandy to try and go to the inside. Doesn't work out.
That's what we like to see. Smart driving from all 3 of those drivers. Probably the smartest driving of all, from Waldo Walden to back out of 3 wide going into turn 1. He didn't have some of his finest moments on the road courses last season, but right there, that was an intelligent move to back out of 3 wide. It was never going to work out, and Joe Hoggard goes for the 3-for-1 or the 2-for-1 special. holds off Skip Gandy, at least for the moment, but Gandy's not going anywhere. He's been attacking him all through the middle of the track, down the back straight. Not going to get much of a draft. You're not in an open wheel car, so you're not going to get much of a draft in this short straight, but he is closing on Hoggard either way. And remember, Hoggard has a little bit of front end damage from that lap 1 spin. That might be hurting him in a straight line just a little bit, and there was a little bit of an advantage in the straight line there for Skip Gandy onto the oval.
And remember what Skip Gandy's racing for right now. He's the only playoff driver within this group. And really, if you look at our timing tower, I mean, Trent Dinkle, playoff driver, up front. Abner Acosta, up front. Chris Hudson, Joshua Daniels, they're the top 4. The only non-playoff driver in the top 5 right now is Tyler Justice. But you look at where Skip Gandy is. I mean, other than Charles Sumner, who ran into a bit of issues, and Pat Harvey, who's further back in 16th, I mean, he is a low-running playoff driver right now. He needs positions on this track because we know, Joey, you don't want to already be behind the 8-ball first race in this round of the playoffs, because it's only going to be worse when we go to Las Vegas and Homestead for the last 2.
And there is no wild card track in the round of 12. We go to here at Charlotte Roval, we go to Vegas, and we go to Homestead. There's no Talladega, there's no Daytona, there's no place where really anybody can win. There's still the opportunity for an upset at any track with a weird green-white checker or whatever, but still, it's a lot more straightforward. Everybody's racing for points. And also, a critical thing to mention here, James O'Brien, who was 0 points above the cut line, literally sitting on the cut line, he's not here tonight. He's a driver we know has a lot of road course prowess, but he is not here tonight. So he has a ton of work to do at Las Vegas and Homestead. He basically needs to win to advance in the playoffs next week, and that opens up a spot potentially for Witt or Walter or McDonald or Papineau, who might not have advanced otherwise.
And Joe Hoggard was just able to get by Brandon Walter. Bit of smoke on the front straightaway. Don't believe anybody got spun or went around. And now battle for 12th is on again, as there's definitely an issue for Brandon Walter in the 99. I'm wondering what happened to him, because he just lost 2 spots and is continuing to lose time. Pulling over to the side now, maybe a little bit as well. What has happened to Brandon Walter, who was having a really, really good run, was up multiple positions from where he started P19, but loses 2 spots, continuing to lose ground, and is about to lose a spot to Waldo Walden as well.
Well, we were hearing from our intrepid whistleblower, Nick Hunter, that the 99 was gaining time. He was flying up front when he was leading that train, ran away from Joe Hoggard, but now he is just plummeting back. Do not know why entirely, but he's lost that spot to Hoggard. He's lost to Gandy. Now Waldo Walden's going to peek to his inside, not going to find the inside. Walter's going to be able to be clear down to the bottom. But in the straight line here, it looks like Waldo's just a little bit quicker. So I wonder, has Walter picked up some phantom damage on a curb or something? Or was he just flailing around for a little bit? Because it looks like he has recovered now. Waldo Walden, speaking of flailing around, gets a little bit loose in the exit of the chicane, and he's going to lose a ton of time, and Brandon Walter might get to breathe a little bit easier now.
Locked up those front tires in the 84, and the 99 reporting that it just got loose through the tri-oval, had no other issues, and he did lose a ton of time and possibly maybe some issues with those tires. And we'll continue to talk about tires now as the run continues to move on. We're 13 laps into this race. Tire wear is going to start to become a topic of conversation, but how about this battle for 6th now, as Tyler Justice puts a solid gap over Lou Christian and Sean Powell. It'll now be these 2 drivers battling for P6 on the track, Powell and Christian, as they head to the back straightaway chicane again.
And Luke Christian's face has just been full of Tyler Justice for the entirety of this race so far, but now he has Tyler's teammate in the background who would really like to give Tyler a little bit of help here and break up that fight, get a little bit of distance between Justice and Christian. Luke Christian, of course, unfortunately eliminated from the playoffs in the round of 16, as was Charles Sumner and Adam Zemke and Waldo Walden as well, I believe, but still fighting for that Season 4 championship individually, fighting for every point he can get, fighting for the top 10 or wherever he might end up at the end of this season. Through turn 1, looks kind of strong, a little bit hoppity in the background. Sean Powell looks to be a little bit stronger right now. I'm wondering, it's only 14 laps into the run, but now is the time that the tires would start to fall off just a little bit, and we know Powell's always good in the long run. Is this why he's trying to attack Luke Christian now? Is this why he's able to, rather?
I think it could be, and we're really seeing Sean Powell on the aggression now. But I also think what's interesting is looking at the top 6 currently, only 1 driver is has improved from where they started this race. Everybody else at the current moment is exactly where they started, including Lou Christian. So where we sit right now, Trent Dinkel, Abner Acosta, Chris Hudson, Joshua Daniels, and Lou Christian have stayed exactly where they began this race and have not moved just yet.
You saw our big mover in the background there, just barely. There's a little pink speck on your screen as we panned away from the chicane there. But Richard Regan Jr. is chasing down this little train with his two teammates. So all three Phase 2 Chassis Works drivers might just meet each other in a few moments' time, or probably a few laps' time, as he does have a 6.6 second gap to bring down. But he's bringing it down. He will very well be with those other drivers by the end of this race. See Steve Loving there in the 27 in a dude perfect paint scheme for tonight. That's different. He's not going to hold up Trent Dinkel, though. He's going to get out of the way, or at least do his best to get up onto the top lane. Might have checked him up a little bit, but not a lot. Abner Acosta might catch him in a little bit more of an inopportune place, though, and he's really hoping that he doesn't catch him through the front stretch chicane like he did with Richard Smith.
And a big hop to that inside curb through the chicane as well for Trent Dinkel in the 9. Here comes Abner Acosta to try and catch up. 1.5 seconds, that gap for the race lead. Lap times have been steadily climbing down, but 0.3 faster last time by for Acosta. And he's going to catch Loving exact same place. He's been catching lap machines all night long and has to kind of force his way around Steve Loving in one of the worst spots to try and fight lap machines on this course. And look at that gap, Joey. We were just talking about 1.5 seconds. Now we're talking about 2.4 as he heads into the infield.
Yeah, not going to be much Steve Loving for Steve Loving from Abner Acosta, but I shouldn't have mentioned the possibility of that happening, because I think I might have just willed that into existence. So I'm sorry, Abner. But look at the gap he's already brought down. He is chasing down Trent Dinkel with every single lap. You saw the gap coming down naturally before they did run into lap traffic. It kind of fluctuates a little bit through the infield, but Abner is clearly faster right now. The question is he fast enough to bring down this gap entirely? And once he catches Trent Dinkel, this is something we always talk about in these next-gen cars, which were designed for road course racing, but haven't always turned out to be the best on the road courses. You can catch a driver, but actually passing them is a very, very different story.
And especially with this track being so thin, I mean, it's really like we're kind of putting NASCAR next-gen machines on your local go-kart track. I mean, these turns are tight. This track is tight. Very difficult to work around as Lou Christian is put into the wall.
That's turn 8 there, coming onto the oval. He's laughing about it, so I think it must have been his own mistake. He's not angry at anybody, but we'll have to see what happened to Lou Christian if he just tagged the wall. Such a strong run going for Lou Christian in the middle of that Phase 2 Chassis Works sandwich. But heavy damage on the number 21. Oh, he clipped the wall before he even got onto the oval. That's exactly the same thing that we saw happen on lap 1 with, who was that? I don't even remember at this point. It was Matthew Long who did that. So clearly a trouble spot there between turn 7 and 8.
So easy to do as well. I mean, he got just a little bit up into the wall, and unfortunately with these next-gen cars and this new iRacing damage model on these machines, I mean, it's very, very difficult to make any small contact and be able to drive away, unfortunately. So these cars being so fragile, you hit a little bit of a bump in the wall. It is like the real world. You really cannot be aggressive with these cars when it comes to the curbs or the wall, and we're seeing Dinkel be aggressive with it. We saw that bite a couple of drivers in the real world today.
Definitely seeing Abner Acosta be a little bit aggressive too in trying to chase Dinkel down. I wonder if the tire wizard might be using up some of his stuff that he was saving for later right now just to bring this gap down. These are all sorts of things we have to think about. You can see Abner dipping a tire into the turf again, down into the front stretch chicane. These drivers are just finding the absolute limits of this track. It's incredible to watch, but also we saw what happened with Lou Christian. When you go a little bit too far over those limits, it really bites in these cars, like you said.
Acosta stays in P2 at the moment. Battle's starting to kind of separate themselves out as Lou Christian sits in the pits. He's going to be out of this race, but battle for 18th. This is a group 1 lap down. Byron McDonald versus Charles Sumner now fighting for 18th. as we have a little bit of a battle starting to brew between Powell and Justice now that they don't have Lou Christian in the middle of them. Of course, Tyler Justice has put a little bit of a gap over his teammate behind in Sean Powell, but at the moment, Tyler Justice continues to try and hold his teammate off as we ride on board with the P5 driver.
It's Tamamasi getting out of the way there in the 05, doing his best to stay out of the way of the lead lap cars, and doing a very good job of it, if I do say so myself. Powell makes up about a tenth of a second there through the infield, and you can see about 5 seconds behind him. Richard Regan Jr. as well has brought that gap down by about a full second over the last 2 laps. So all 3 Phase 2 Chassis Works drivers together, technically separated by quite a bit, but for Powell and Regan at least, it seems like they've been a little bit kinder on their tires. They got a little bit more pace in the tank right now than their teammate, as Justice locks it up just a little bit in the entry to the chicane.
He gets it back to ovals 1 and 2, and now Sean Powell 6/10 back. Gonna try and catch up as much as he can. That battle for the lead has gone down, but look at how many lap machines Trent Dinkle is sending back for Abner Acosta to deal with. Now Acosta is going to clear Mike Witt. This might be an opportunity as Pat Harvey is going to be the next victim to go 1 lap down. Dinkle goes way to the inside as Harvey goes way wide, and Acosta was able to gain back a good amount of time through the infield there. 1.4 seconds is the gap as they go to the back straight away. Harvey not going to give much of a pressure to Abner Acosta, but Trent Dinkle is going to have even more lap machines he's catching up to. He's got Waldo Walden, Brandon Walter, Skip Gandy is coming up on.
Yeah, Abner Acosta saying right now, thank you, Pat Harvey, for backing out, because he was tracking to catch Harvey in exactly the same spot he caught every other lapped car. But Dinkle is actually going to catch lap traffic a little bit through the front stretch chicane. The bane of Abner's existence is now the bane of Trent Dinkle's existence. Waldo Walden got a little bit of pace, though, isn't holding up Dinkle necessarily, but Richard Smith about to go his 2nd lap down. We've got 3 different layers of laps down here. Waldo Walden's going to back out. Richard Smith, not so fast, though. Trent Dinkle is going to have to work to get by Richard Smith, who's still not getting out of the way. Now he finally pulls off to the side. Acosta's going to get through Waldo Walden, and again, it looks like he's going to catch Richard Smith II in a less opportune place than Dinkle as they go over the top of the hill.
Is he going to catch him on the exit of the infield to the oval turns, or is he going to catch him in the oval turns? Here they go, back onto the oval, and wide goes that lap machine, and to the inside of the 23 goes Abner Acosta, and that'll be relatively easier for Acosta to get by, but still 2.2 seconds now, and we're hearing pit stops might be soon. Mark Kalin looks like he might be trying to come down pit road soon, and Abner Acosta on the radio not very happy with what just happened there.
Yeah, that's got to be the next innovation in sim racing broadcasting. We need like live team radio. Abner Acosta has apparently been very, very unhappy with the situations that have been betraying him here. He's just kind of disappointed with reality. I don't think he's specifically disappointed with any drivers, but he just keeps catching lap traffic in the worst possible places. Trent Dinkle's been struggling with a little bit of understeer, with a little bit of tightness through the entirety of this track, and I think that's the next innovation we got to work up here. I want to hear these guys live. We might have to have a censor button ready, though.
So it is a thing. It is possible. However, I would need either more people or more hands. So unless somebody comes up with an octopus surgery and I get 8 arms, I don't think it's going to be a thing relatively soon.
Any octopus surgeons out there, if you're listening, give Josh Lee a call.
He's
going to need it. So Sean Powell here, he only has 2 arms, unfortunately, but he's using both of them to attack Tyler Justice, and they're going to reach lap traffic again, so there's still 35 laps to go in this race. We're already reaching lap traffic. You're just going to be constantly cycling through lap traffic for the rest of this race. Of course, there's a few damaged cars who have come down pit road multiple times. They keep coming in and out, but you're going to be navigating through lap traffic all night. Charles Sumner, there's a little bit of rallycross there on the outside, a little bit of mowing the lawn to open up the door for Powell and Justice. He's actually going to come out on track right in front of Richard Regan Jr., so he might have hurt Richard a little bit doing that, but he gave Justice and Powell as much room as possible.
And there is that pink number 56 running P7 at the moment. He is our biggest mover of the race, plus 17. And Trent Dinkle continues to lead at a pretty dominating pace. And okay, Joey, if we're coming up on the fuel window, Mark Kalin said a couple of laps ago that, you know, he had a few laps left before he was going to try and come into the pit lane to begin his green flag cycle. Do anybody try and stretch it far enough to make it to halfway? We're getting very close. Halfway is going to come up at about lap number 28. So if they can make it 6 more laps, then that only means they would have to pit once. Then tire wear would end up being the main factor in pit stops. But right now, drivers at the front, I mean, best lap time for Trent Dinkle was a 1:19 flat, and he just ran a 1:19.1. I don't think we're talking much about tire wear tonight. I think we're talking about fuel.
Yeah, as Trent jumps about 4 feet in the air through the chicane there, he's saying the tires are coming back to him. So if he can extend to halfway, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't go all the way to halfway. Pit delta here is like, I think 50 seconds or so in a legitimate stop, or 40 or 30 or something like that, but it's pretty long. It's a big stop. So if you can descend that a little bit, if you can cut that down, just do one stop, I don't think there's any reason not to do it. And if Trent Dinkle's fine in the tires, if he can make it on fuel, give him 5 more laps, split the race in half, why not?
I think that might be what he's trying to do. He needs to make it 5 more laps. But then he'd be good to the end on fuel, and it looks like, I mean, they're not really talking too much about tires, so that could be a viable strategy as the two teammates go battling once again. It was a 3-car battle about 5 laps ago, but since Lou Christian put himself into the wall, it has been a 2-horse fight for P5 between Justice and Powell as they'll fight back into the infield. But right now, nobody electing to come down into the pit lane. Skip Gandy came down, I think, he came down at some point. I think it might be a glitch in my timing, but it says that he came down for a 10-second pit lane and a 0.1 seconds in the box. That does not seem at all correct.
That sounds like a next gen stop. That's going to be the stop of the future. 10 seconds in the lane, 0.3 seconds. They instantly charge the battery for your electrified NASCAR. But Skip Gandy kind of fuddling with the boundaries of space and time here. He will come down legitimately later, I'm sure, but waiting a little bit longer for that to happen. I think everybody must be going until halfway here. Mark Kalin said there were like 3 to 4 laps. Like 4 laps ago? So if he comes in, I guess that'll tell us if you can stretch it all the way to 28, but it's always tough to predict in the PRL. There's a lot of guys in this series who know how to stretch fuel in completely unpredictable ways, in ways you can't figure out how they've done it. So we just have to wait and see. I see Tamamasi on pit road, but he is multiple laps down. I think Eric Papineau might be legitimately stopping, or he might just be getting passed by Joe Hoggard. So false alarm there.
That looks to be just a normal pass down the back straightaway, and maybe that'll start pit lane for Eric Papineau as he works his way through 3 and 4. One of the drivers in the field that also runs the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series on Monday night, and I think, not to put the PRL down, this is just the analogy that I'm going to use. It's like the Cup guys running Xfinity the day before. It's just trying to get a little bit of practice in before he goes back to the Charlotte Roval tomorrow night for the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series. Not that I'm comparing PRL to Xfinity. They're still running the next gens, but, you know, just saying. The day before running a different series. My analogy hitting?
Josh Lee personally attacks the driving standards of the Precision Racing League. Book that.
There's the headline.
As your headline for tomorrow. But I get it. It's always good to have this extra practice. Some drivers, you know, they did the Road Atlanta GT3 race last week to prepare for Petit Le Mans this weekend, and it's always good to have a race as your practice. At least for me, practice is kind of boring. Just driving laps around. I want to race. Give me 56 laps of the Charlotte Roval. That's the kind of practice I want.
And it is practice against some really good drivers, too. I mean, oh no, we got drivers around in the front straightaway. Joshua Daniels is around. Lou Christian, who got back onto the racetrack, also got spun. And I think the 23 of Richard Smith, the second, also getting spun around, too, on the front stretch. That was a quick incident. Only discovered it when we came up to it with our cameras. Let's use the replay cameras and see exactly what happened on the front straightaway to Daniels and Smith. Daniels loose through the chicane. Smith comes up and That's a very easy situation to make there. And Lou Christian crawling over the turtle curbs as there goes the battling teammates coming up on this group.
Richard Smith not making a lot of friends at the front stretch chicane. Might have to look at another angle to know if we can entirely attribute blame to him there, but I think we probably can either way. He's doing his best to get out of the way, but that was a little bit of a clumsy move there, unfortunately. We're going to look at Mike Witt, actually, a little bit further back. We were about to see Byron Johnson, who's recovering after a little bit of a troubled start. But Mike Witt, a playoff driver, fighting for every single point he can, comes into this only a few points over the cut line. Let me check exactly. No, he's actually 9 points below the cut line, but that's because James O'Brien is above him. But James O'Brien isn't here tonight, so technically Mike Witt is above the cut line. Playoff math is always impossible to calculate, but either way, Mike Witt is fighting for every point he can take, and luckily everybody ahead of him, he's also still ahead of him in the playoffs. He doesn't have to worry about being beaten by Walter or McDonald or Papineau right now. Actually, he does have to worry about Brandon Walter, who's ahead of Waldo Walden. I'm not doing a great job of doing my math tonight, Josh.
I don't have the brain capacity when producing as well to also do math, so I'll leave the math up to you, unfortunately, Joey.
Get my calculator out. Maybe that'll help me do some calculus, but it's always tough to calculate these points. And think about the drivers in the cockpits here trying to calculate those same points. I'm sure it's even harder for them. It's hard for people like Nick Hunter who are trying to calm these guys down, tell them if they're safe, if they're above the cut line. It's impossible. It's impossible to calm these guys down. And I'm sure Tyler Justice is not going to be especially calm right now either, because his teammate Sean Powell has closed down that gap even further. Richard Regan Jr. has also closed the gap down even further, and Josh Daniels is going to be on his recovery drive forward to try and take the podium back. So it's not going to be a calm 30 laps to go for Tyler Justice. Powell inches closer and closer and closer on the exit of the chicane. Let's see if he's close enough coming into the front stretch chicane. He's certainly bringing that gap down, but I don't think he's going to send a dive on his teammate this early.
Justice holds fourth. Powell still fighting from fifth. And I mentioned earlier, Joey, how this track, you really have to be brave with every move you make. You kind of can't half go for a move. You really just have to dive in and go for it. I don't think Powell's willing to do that, especially on a teammate right now. As you saw, Tyler Justice almost hit the outside wall. If Justice makes a mistake, that's a different story. But if Justice is running at his normal pace like he is now, and Sean Powell's all over the back bumper, I don't think Powell's going to want to go for an aggressive move, because we've seen already tonight aggressive moves lead to incidents, and I don't think Sean Powell, especially trying to do that with a teammate in front.
Down the hill, back up the hill, and then down the hill again. A surprising amount of elevation change for a Roval, for a road course in the middle of an oval. You don't always see elevation change, but at the Charlotte Roval, either naturally or unnaturally, however this track has developed, there is some very, very interesting elevation change in the infield of this track, and really throw you off the rhythm if you get it wrong. But it's always satisfying when you nail the line through the infield of the Charlotte Roval. It is a very good road course that's developed in the center of the Charlotte Motor Speedway oval. But Sean Powell not able to take advantage of it, unfortunately for him. We have reached halfway in the race. Trent Dinkle did cross the line about half a lap ago at this point to cross into lap number 28. So let's see if he does bring it down immediately as we reach halfway in this race. Still has the back stretch to navigate, but he's got a lot of lapped cars in front of him that he might want to get out of the way of. And yeah, there's Skip Gandy in front of him. There's Eric Papineau. If I was him, I'd be bringing it down pit road right now, because I don't want to deal with lapped cars again.
We started to hear that a lot of them are aiming for about a 34 to 36 lap fuel window, but we're starting to see drivers trickle in. Papineau trickled in, same thing with Joe Hoggard. They now will both go one lap down, as off and away goes Trent Dinkle in the 9, but two takers into the pit lane. Looked like we saw Byron McDonald also come into the pit lane, and same thing with Charles Sumner from 18th and 19th. Both of them now multiple laps down, but Hoggard and Papineau in. Is this going to start to trickle down? More drivers closer to the mid pack. Not sure when these leaders are going to elect to come down into the pit lane, but it's got to be soon.
Dinkle, no trouble with Skip Gandy. Abner Acosta is going to have to pass Skip Gandy, but Skip Gandy's teammate, Mike Witt, is the next driver to bring it down. Comes into that number 26 SGE Esports pit stall, going to take tires and fuel, as every driver in the field will most likely. And he will rejoin to continue to try and drive his way forward to take as many points as he can because that is going to be a very, very close battle between him and Brandon Walter for that last spot in the cut line. Acosta navigates through Skip Gandy there. A little bit of a scary moment as they kind of crossed over each other. And the train is all meeting up here. We talked about how Richard Regan Jr. was 6-7 seconds behind his teammates earlier in the race. Well, we've given him like 14 laps to bring that gap down. And there's Justice at the head of your screen, then Powell, then Daniels, then Regan. In about 2 more laps, they're going to be under a blanket. And Richard Regan Jr. is just going to continue his fantastic drive forward tonight.
And he's knocking on the door of P6 from Joshua Daniels, who we saw get involved in that incident. And yeah, was very lucky to only lose a couple of spots there as Regan Jr. tries to catch up. Sounds like Waldo Walden's going to be one of the next takers into the pit lane, but still no calls from any of the drivers at the head of the field as we look on board now with Richard Regan Jr. into the backstretch chicane. Now 4 drivers tucked up by about 1 second on the track as they race through ovals 3 and 4.
Josh Daniels lifts early. He's coming in. That was sketchy, but there's a late decision. I hope he called that out on the radio, but Josh Daniels has brought it down. Byron Johnson and a lot of the drivers previously mentioned, Walden, Walter, Harvey, everybody's starting to come in, and Joshua Daniels, the first of the real lead lap fighters to come in. We'll see if that triggers anything from the rest of his friends up there on the lead lap.
And there's the 9 of Trent Dinkle out in front. He does not elect to pit yet. So the 9 stays on the track. How long is he going to stay on the track for? Because now we've got Joshua Daniels. We got Skip Gandy in. He's another playoff driver. Do we see Trent Dinkle trying to stretch it a little bit more? Do we see maybe what is Abner Acosta going to do? 2.5 seconds back. What is he going to end up doing as the 99 might have gotten turned around in the infield?
And this was right after he came down pit road, and he is struggling. He's sliding around quite a bit, but let's see what happened to Brandon Walter as he exits the pits. That's Robert Bissaw Jr. behind him. Did Robert play any role? It looks like no. Brandon Walter just kind of crawling a little bit through turns 2 and 3 up over the top of the hill. Still nothing immediately wrong. And then he just overcooks it over the top of the hill.
Oh, did hit the wall as well. That's unfortunate for the number 99. He said on the radio he was not happy with those new tires, but that's the nature of the iRacing service now. One of the newer things added to the iRacing service in regards to tires is when you exit pit road, your tires will be cold. They will not be warm. You have to warm up those tires yourself. If you don't do that, they're going to be ice cold when you're taking to the racetrack. And if you're going full throttle, that is going to be bad news for you if you end up going into the wall like we just saw.
Richard Regan Jr. comes down pit road, but Dinkle's still waiting, and there is an absolute gaggle of lapped cars right ahead of him. That's Mark Kalin, Pat Harvey, and a ton of others. Some who have pitted, some who haven't. Mark Kalin gets a little bit loose on the exit of turn 3 there. Dinkle's going to get held up here over the top of the hill. Kalin has no real reason to let him by. He's still on the lead lap. He's trying to fight for that lead lap position, and Dinkle is going to get held up here big time through turn 8. Trying to do a little bit of a crossover, but Mark Kalin's not concerned. He's running his own race, and I'm sure that's going to frustrate Dinkle a little bit. He gets to the inside. Kalin's not going to fight it too hard, but that was not the easiest pass Trent Dinkle's made all night.
How soon until he pits? Mark Kalin sounds like he's pitting this time. Tyler Justice is going to bring his number 6 Chevy into the pit lane. I mentioned Abner Acosta. When is that 5 machine going to pit? Because he's 2 seconds behind Trent Dinkle and really only is now catching Trent Dinkle if the 9 is getting held up by traffic. Does he go for a little bit of an oddball strategy? Does he try and get off cycle from the 9 to maybe try and get just the littlest undercut or an overcut on the 9? I think he really has to do whatever the 9 doesn't do when he comes down to the pit lane, as the 62 will elect to pit this time.
I think Abner's probably regretting not coming in right there because he made up a ton of time on Dinkle and then lost it all again trying to navigate Waldo Walden through the front stretch chicane. But hindsight is 2020. Mark Kalin chugs the Dr. Pepper as the pit crew puts on virtual tires and virtual fuel. Dr. Pepper is fuel, in fact. So good job there, Mark Kalin. He'll be back out on track. Tyler Justice, a very, very lengthy stop. I wonder, has he gotten a speeding penalty? Was he too quick entering pit road? Because he is still in there. He didn't have any damage, but that is a very, very long stop. That's longer than a penalty. Something else has gone wrong for Tyler Justice.
Justice currently 1 lap down, P11. He's back out onto the racetrack. Yeah, 54 seconds in the box. Could it have been damage repair and maybe a little bit of damage suffered earlier on? It could have been something so simple that we didn't really see cosmetically that, you know, either was required or was optional that the 6 decided to get fixed. Either way, he's 1 lap down, and we're hearing possible issues for the 62 of Mark Kalin at the exit.
And Dinkel and the entry has just come down pit road, as has Abner Acosta, and Mark Kalin will likely be bringing it down pit road as well if he does have a penalty for an unsafe pit exit. But here is the money stops for Dinkel and Acosta. The gap was about 1.8 seconds when they came in. So let's see, will there be any real difference between the two? Are they going to put tires on, or is it just fuel for private label team hype? Those tires were not struggling. Dinkel and Acosta were still running low 119s. But let's see as the 9 and the 5 sit, as Trent Dinkel takes a little bit of break. 12.9 seconds, and I didn't see those tires go up on the jacks.
No tires for Trent Dinkel. Looks like no tires for Abner Acosta as well, but I said that Acosta would have had to do whatever the Trent Dinkel doesn't do, and he did exactly what he did. And look at the gap now, Joey. 4.5 seconds. I think we can write out Abner Acosta for the race win now.
I would never go so far as to write off Abner Acosta for a race win, because Abner does some miraculous things, as the tire wizard always does. But let's see what happened to Mark Kalin first and foremost here on the pit exit. An unsafe pit exit at the Charlotte Roval. It's easy to do if you're just trying to take as much throttle as possible. You're trying to get out as quickly as possible. Ooh. But that is not getting out as quickly as possible. That's the exact opposite.
And take a look at that outer line, Joey. The spin didn't matter. What matters is right there. He is outside of the line before he gets to the blue exit line, and that right there is a penalty by the iRacing stewards.
Yeah, this has not been the Mark Kalin season in the Precision Racing League. 2022 Season 4 as a whole, nothing seems to go right for him. I think he's wishing that 2023 will start even quicker. So disappointment for Mark Kalin, and he had new tires on the car, so that might have been exactly why that happened. Just cold tires, just like Brandon Walter. A little bit of a mistake, and ends with him sliding over that blue line. Kalin has brought it down, and he is now down in 14th after his second stop of the day. We'll see how far he can drive his way forward. Chris Hudson is the final driver to come down pit road. Richard Smith hasn't actually come down yet, but I imagine he will from 19th place as well. But we wait for Hudson to come down, and Richard Regan Jr. has cycled ahead of his teammate Tyler Justice, of course, who was in the pit lane for an extended amount of time. He cycled ahead of Josh Daniels. He cycled ahead of Sean Powell. There's 22 seconds up to Chris Hudson now, but there's 22 laps to go. Could Richard Regan Jr. be on the podium here?
He's got a lot of ways to go, as Chris Hudson is back onto the racetrack now after their pit stop. That puts them in the number 43 in third. 21 seconds now separating Regan Jr. and Hudson. Tell you what, Joe, we've seen a lot of mistakes tonight. Chris Hudson makes a big one, backs it up into the wall. We could be looking at a podium for Richard Regan Jr., but I'll switch over the timing tower so we can see the gaps to our race leader. All but the top 6 are currently 1 lap down or more. And how about Trent Dinkel? Didn't take tires during that pit stop, and he lays down the fastest lap of the race at a 1:18.976.
I think that's called stomping your authority. Trent Dinkel, 36 laps into this race. The tires are getting better for Trent. Abner Acosta was once the tire wizard. Trent Dinkel, I mentioned the apprentice becoming the master. He might have just become the master tonight. Still needs a couple more races to truly show his authority, but at least tonight, Trent Dinkel has just been in a whole nother league here. Of course, the gap back to Abner, not entirely natural. He's been held up by lap cars in some very, very inopportune places. He's been unhappy about that. He might have a little bit more raw pace tonight, but the cards are dealt the same to both drivers, and Trent Dinkel has just had a little bit better luck.
And that better luck is helping him at the front of the field right now as popping out Justice in a little bit of a battle. This is 9th place. Both of them currently 1 lap down. Tyler Justice with that long pit stop. This is really putting him farther down the order, which we know the 6 is fast. We know he has a car to contend further inside of the top 10. He just needs to now rebound and get up there. So with the 6 now in 10th, and he's catching up to Papanow a little bit. How about Abner Acosta? The challenge is on, Joey. He just set the new fastest lap of the race at a 1:18.95, 5 seconds the gap.
He's hoping right now. There's 20 laps to go. How many lapped cars do I need to hold up my teammate to bring this gap down? There's 2/10 between the two of them on the last lap. Multiply that by 20. That is about 10. I'm not doing that math, but either way, Abner Acosta is not going to bring the gap down by anything noticeable, just naturally here by going a little bit quicker per lap than Trent Dinkel. But there's a lot of cars still circulating on this track. There's only 5 drivers that are completely out of this race. There's a few others in the pits, but there are still 20 drivers still out on track that Trent Dinkel is guaranteed to pass again at some point. There's a lot of drivers. There's Waldo Walden at the head of your screen who he's going to have to pass soon. Richard Smith is still circulating around, and the damaged Lou Christian, the damaged Robert Besaw. There are a lot of things that Dinkel is going to have to deal with that aren't just the track here, and Acosta's hoping they screw him up every single time.
Back to ovals 3 and 4, and it's back to the battle for 9th between Papanow and Justice. There's another fastest lap of the race set by Abner Acosta. If they were closer together, I'd say this might be a battle that's on, but still 4.5 seconds left and a lot more lap traffic to deal with, not just for Trent Dinkel, who's caught up to the number 84 here, but you know, every lap car that the 9 has to deal with, so does the 5 of Abner Acosta. So as long as Trent keeps sending them back to Abner and we keep seeing these lap machines be a factor, we've seen that Abner Acosta just has not worked his way through the lap machines well tonight.
That's always the unfortunate trade-off, especially when you're 4.7 seconds behind the leader. If you're like half a second behind, you can hope that the lap car screws the leader up a little bit. You can sneak to the inside, but not in this scenario here. Waldo Walden will likely be far enough ahead of Abner Acosta here to meet him in a somewhat more opportune place than some of the other lapped cars have. So hopefully Abner doesn't go nuclear mode, but Brandon Walter ahead is a teammate. He'll get out of the way. Steve Loving, though, not a teammate to Trent Dinkel. He still doesn't really have a reason to fight him too hard because he is a lap down, but there are places on the track, we've seen them all night, where you can't really let a lapped car by, and there is a whole gaggle of them waiting for Trent Dinkel to get by. Look at that whole train. Powell, Kalen. Trent Dinkel's going to have a bad time here in a few seconds.
And all of those lap machines, Joey, are just going to be sent right back to the 9 of Abner Acosta. So Dinkel can see all of them in front of him, but I mean, Acosta's still dealing with the 84 as well, and he's going to soon see all the same drivers that the 9 of Trent Dinkel is going to put 1 lap down. The 84 doesn't make it hard for Abner Acosta. He gets by, but it's down to 4.9 seconds as here comes the 9 to work his way by a handful of drivers. Steve Loving going to be the first, and he's got plenty more to deal with. There is Sean Powell ahead as well. Loving's not going to make it difficult for the 9 as they head to the backstretch chicane, but getting very close to teammate the number 99 in front.
And Walter not trying to hold up Dinkel there, but Dinkel just absolutely sent it in under braking and just got held up by virtue of being faster than his teammate through the corner there. A little bit of an awkward moment. So we see Richard Smith in the foreground pulling it down pit road again. He will not be ahead of Dinkel coming into the front stretch chicane. Acosta brought the gap down by about half a second in that little excursion with Walter and Loving through the chicane. Oh, and Mark Kalen is spun ahead. Mark Kalen is spun again right ahead of Trent Dinkel. Dinkel's gonna have to check up a little bit. Kalen's able to recover, but again, that's a full half second out of Dinkel's lead. Acosta's still got to pass all these guys again, but Mark Kalen scaring the pants off Trent Dinkel there, I'm sure.
They look at the replay through the heartburn turn and gets on the power and just doesn't have enough. A little bit of a hit to the front end, but there goes Trent Dinkel right on by Kalen. And now that gap down to 4 seconds as here comes Abner Acosta. he still has lap machines to deal with. But take a look off the back of the number 9 of Trent Dinkel. There's Mark Kalin. There's the 99. And Abner Acosta somewhere back there still has to deal with a whole host of drivers in front of him before he even has to think about the 9 of Trent Dinkel to deal with.
Yeah, you can see a couple blue pixels at the head of your screen. You can see Dinkel off into the distance. Now Abner Acosta has Steve Loving ahead of him. Loving was very, very kind to Trent Dinkel, really backed out of things coming into the backstretch chicane, but the front stretch chicane has been the bane of Abner Acosta's existence here. Dinkel all on his lonesome, Kalin, and here is Loving, here is Acosta, and it's happening again. It is all coming back to Abner Acosta. He gets held up by Steve Loving through the front stretch chicane. He's going to be let by into turn 1. Brandon Walter, his teammate, is going to try and not hold him up. But again, all that gap Acosta brought down, it's all gone again. It's just deja vu every single time. Who said deja vu all over again? Well, it's happening like 17 times for Abner Acosta tonight.
And now as Acosta gets by a handful of drivers, 5.3 seconds is the gap. He just continues to have this lap traffic and continues to lose time. It's not really to any fault of Abner Acosta. He's just catching them in the worst possible places and having to deal with these drivers in spots of the track that is very difficult to get by quick. It seems like every time Trent Dinkel works his way up to any lap traffic, it's, you know, right here, ovals 1 and 2, ovals 3 and 4, down the back straightaway, where he can make quick work of them. Not the same thing for the 5 of Acosta.
Trent Dinkel into the front stretch chicane. That's Byron Johnson coming up next. Pat Harvey ahead of him, and a few others, but Trent Dinkel, I think, is probably thanking the lap cars tonight. He's not had too much trouble with any of them. They've all been very, very kind. He's met them all at opportune moments. Richard Smith got a drive-through for instant points a little bit earlier. He is coming back down again. You can't get a second drive-through for instant points because after you get your drive-through, if you hit 24x, you get disqualified. But let's see what happened to Richard Smith to trigger that incident here. Coming into the backstretch chicane, Josh Daniels gets by him. Does he spin on the exit here? Something went on with Richard Smith, but doesn't look like it happened to the chicane. Oh, there it is. There it is, right after the chicane.
And we heard there was another one as well. We won't go back to find that one, but 2 self spins for the 23 sends him well down the order with those fresh tires. And now P18, 5 laps down to your race leader as we continue with Trent Dinkel at the front of the field right now. Gap starting to work their way on as it's Brandon Walter and Steve Loving in one of the closest battles on the track right now, but they have a driver that is only 1 lap down in between both of these 2 lap down drivers, and now Sean Powell is going to make quick work at the number 99 that is 1 fewer lap down than him, so Powell holds P6.
If you want to know how dominant Acosta and Dinkel have been tonight, there are 5 drivers left on the lead lap. Josh Daniels is the last driver on the lead lap as of right now. So that is just how dominantly fast Dinkel and Acosta have been. They've pulled 40 seconds, 45 seconds over Chris Hudson for 3rd, and they will likely put everybody but the top 4 a lap down. I have to imagine that Dinkel will catch up to the back of Daniels. He's like 2 seconds a lap faster than Daniels every single lap, so he'll catch him soon. I wouldn't even rule him out catching Richard Regan Jr. before the end of the race, but that's going to be a little bit tougher of a task. But either way, these two have just put on an absolute clinic here, as they always do on the road courses, and it's not predictable, so to speak. You can say Abner Acosta is going to be good on the road courses. You can say now that Trent Dinkel is going to be good on the road courses, but you can't predict which one of them it's going to be anymore.
And that is what's making this run in the playoffs so exciting to watch, because especially at the ovals, I mean, we really have no idea who's going to walk away with the win each and every week. So as we continue on with this playoffs, I mean, we're really just watching all the battles unfold and watching new drivers get up to the front, and it's been really interesting to watch so far in the regular season. And now as we go through the playoffs, it's going to get even more interesting, especially with the domination we're seeing out of the 9 of Trent Dinkel tonight, because remember, Joey, he came in 77 points, good to the cut line, and now he's not even gonna have to worry about the cut line after tonight if he walks away with this win.
I think with the way the math works, I don't know if you had to worry about the cut line at all. But again, math has not been our strong suit tonight, and the best thing you can do, like you said, is to win and to just completely lock yourself in, like he did at Texas in the round of 16. Dinkel's likely going to be in the round of 4. Acosta's likely going to be in the round of 4. Regan's likely going to be in the round of 4. But once we get to Chicagoland at the end of the season, a 1.5-mile track is a place where all 3 of those drivers excel. Who knows who's going to win that? And it might just be the 4th driver, who we don't know yet, who ends up beating all of them.
Back through the backstretch chicane for the 9, and battle's getting scarce on the track. Walter and Loving are close together now as they fight their way into the backstretch chicane. Loving on the back bumper, the 99. This is the battle for 14th currently on the track. Both of these drivers 2 laps down, but even though they're not on the same lap as the leader, Joey, they still are in a race of their own. And Brandon Walter fighting for playoff points as well, being one of our playoff drivers.
And Walter has lost out to Witt over the course of this race, so he is going to lose a few more points below the cut line, but still, like you said, just trying to fight for every point in the playoffs, trying to fight for every single point in this championship. Of course, every point in the position in the Precision Racing League pays points, so every position matters, and you got to fight tooth and nail for every single one of them, and he is having to do that over the Dude Perfect car of Steve Loving. Steve's going to peek to the inside, but still, that dive into turn 3 there, turn 3, now into turn 4. Loving's all over the back of him. He pulled a little bit of a switchback there, masterfully executed, but now up over the top of the hill through 6 and then to 7. Loving's using all the track. He's trying to find a way by Walter, but that's like a BMW level of wideness that Brandon Walter has managed to stretch out of that next gen.
I hope he's using his turn signals at least.
They should put that on the next gen car. That's the thing that I want. I want turn signals like animated. Like I saw in the rain lights at Suzuka last night in F1, there were some rain lights that were just completely locked on the left. Steve Loving, though, locked onto the back of Brandon Walter into the chicane. I thought they were both about to lose it there with the amount they were pogoing. Loving is full commitment right now, but he lost almost a full second there because of that send.
Yeah, that's going to push Steve Loving 5/10 now behind the 14 of Brandon Walter. And this still is the closest battle on the racetrack. Next closest is going to be the 4 seconds between Justice and Gandy. And with 11 to go, Joey, green flag pit stops are finished. We are done with the green flag pit stops. We will not see any drivers make any more scheduled stops into the pit lane tonight. And I think right now, this battle for the lead is only going to change if the 9 machine ends up making a mistake or runs into more lap cars, because Acosta just had to deal with Mike Witt and lost a full second. 6.1's the gap now for the race lead.
Yeah, I think Acosta might be looking at his relative right now and just seeing as the lap cars come up to Dinkel every single time and just hoping with a little sliver of hope that one of them ends up kamikazing Trent Dinkel and taking him out so he can come through to take the win. But I also don't think he's thinking that. He wants a legit win, and it would be a legit win, but it would also be quite a bit of luck. But we'll see what happens. If it does happen, I don't think Abner will turn down the glory of the victory. But those things are impossible to predict, and when they do come, they're pretty joyful, but you can't rely on those. Abner Acosta crosses the line this time, 1:19.6. He's actually lost speed to Trent Dinkel overall. I think he might have overcooked these tires, just trying to push to bring down Dinkel while he was getting angry at the lap cars, because he's fallen off a little bit, and Dinkel is still basically running exactly the same speed that he did at the start of the race, just about 0.3 slower, but Acosta's more like a second slower than his fastest.
1:19.3 last time by for Trent Dinkel and a 1:19.6 for Abner Acosta last time by. So yeah, we're definitely starting to see these drivers slow down a bit, but not a whole ton of tire wear when it comes to the grand scheme of things. I mean, with 10 to go, 47 laps on most of the tires at the front, especially the top 2, top 3, maybe even 4th. I don't believe Richard Regan Jr. took fresh tires. We'll see in a moment, but at least for the top 3, Dinkel, Acosta, and Hudson, I mean, all of them right now did not take tires under that caution or under the green flag pit stops, and all of them still running at the front of the field with fairly good lap times as well. They haven't fallen off too much.
You saw Josh Daniels in the background there. He has finally gone a lap down. So Trent Dinkel has lapped everybody up to 4th. He now laps Richard Smith II as well for the 6th or 7th time. Richard Regan Jr. is the last car that Trent Dinkel can think about lapping. There's about a 10-second gap between the two of them with 9 laps to go. Dinkel has almost been a second faster. It's going to be way easier because Richard Regan Jr., right as we cut to his on board, throws it off the road up in turn 6. A little bit of a tap of the wall, not going to be too heavily damaged, but Richard Regan Jr. makes a mistake all on his own.
We'll take a look at what happened with that mistake, but it looked like the same thing that we saw with a couple of drivers with cold tires earlier on in this race after the green flag pit stops. It was just a little bit of overcooking into the corner. Here's Richard Regan Jr. Yeah, just completely misses that braking zone and ends up going way wide. Luckily, pretty soft wall with the tires there and a good bit of runoff area that he was able to use, but that's not going to do any favors to Richard Regan Jr. and does a good bit of favors to Trent Dinkel as well, because he was good at far enough ahead, Joey, that he didn't even have to deal with him.
I think you will have to deal with him in a couple. Yeah, you will have to deal with him in a couple laps time, unfortunately. But yeah, that's not going to be a tough move. But I think Trent Dinkel does want the glory of lapping everybody up to 3rd place, so he might be pushing a little bit harder coming to the end of this race. And Abner Acosta on the last lap, just to completely throw anything out of the window for what we can predict at the end of this race. Acosta just did an 18.8 on the lap before, as Dinkel did a 1:19.7. So he pulled a full second on Trent Dinkel on that last lap. Now as the times update, it's evened out again on the lap after that, but Acosta found some incredible speed on that lap, and he's not going to be able to keep that up for the next 8 laps, though, unfortunately.
8 laps to go, and just how quickly this time has run out. Of course, we only went green about an hour and change ago, so this has been relatively quick race, all things considered, at the Charlotte Roval. These guys have been putting that pace down, and we've seen kind of a big gradient of lap times. I mean, I'll put up the fastest lap times of the race right now, and I mean, of course, the 118s from the 2 drivers up front, but then you have 119s, and then you go to the 120s, 121s, a 125 from Richard Smith Jr., Richard Smith the second, and then a couple other 122s and 121s. So we're seeing a big gradient in lap times, and of course, we knew the 9 and the 5 would be the 2 cars to beat. They would be the fastest drivers on the track, but as Dinkel sets another fastest lap at a 1:18.827, I think what we're also seeing is a lot of drivers be very, very close in the midfield, and the only thing separating them was other lap machines and the green flag stops.
Yeah, remember when I just said a lap ago that Trent Dinkel might have been falling off a little bit when he did a 19.7? Well, he's decided to disprove me entirely, and he's run his fastest lap of the race with 7 laps to go. He's going to get faster and faster. He's going to run his fastest lap on the last lap, I bet.
He took that very personally.
He did take that personally. I bet old Nick Hunter is feeding our lines to the private label team hype drivers and getting them to perform exactly the opposite as to what we predict.
Well, if he is, Trent Dinkel should just bin it into the wall and make this really interesting.
Yeah, Trent should just back up by like 5.7 seconds, and Abner should do the same, and then let Chris Hudson catch up by 45 seconds, then go 3 wide into the final chicane and let that decide the race.
Yep, I fully agree. We should get on that.
Book it.
If it actually happens now, I think poor Hugo Louise at RaceSpotTV is going to get a lot of emails heading his way.
Yeah, I think we might have to go to like all the congressional committees for like fixing stuff. Like we'll have to go to the FCC probably as well, but you know, we'll deal with that when we come to it. Trent Dinkel deals with Richard Regan Jr. here in the head of the race. That is every single driver outside of the top 3, 1 lap down. Chris Hudson still has about a 30-second cushion, so he'll be safe to the end of the race to keep his cushy little lead lap spot, but Dinkel has lapped everybody up to 3rd in a 28-car field. That's pretty impressive.
It is incredibly impressive, and I think what's more impressive is, of course, we talked about earlier how Abner Acosta really coming into tonight was going to be one of the favorites, but now that the 9 car has been catching up to the 5 in terms of road course pace, that we didn't really know anymore. Well, now we thoroughly know, as Loving and Walker end up in a heated battle through the front stretch chicane. I think they might have made a little bit of contact through that front straightaway as well. And let's go back, see what happened with this group.
Yeah, I saw a lot of zeros on the ticker, and that usually means that something crazy happened. So let's see. Steve Loving in the Dude Perfect entry, chasing down Brandon Walter. That's pretty far back. I wonder if he clipped the grass on the outside trying to copy the Abner Acosta line. No, it was actually Brandon Walter who got out all his shape on the entry to the chicane.
Whoa.
Steve Loving says, I'll pick that up. Thank you very much. Overcooks it a little bit, and Skip Gandy takes them both.
What a dive to the inside by Steve Loving. Let's look on board the number 27. He sees Walter in front, wheel hopping, very loose, locks it up, down to the inside. Oh, they made contact. That was pretty harsh contact at that.
Yeah, he mistimed that. That would have been an excellent switchback, but he just mistimed it a little bit and ended up plowing into the back of Brandon Walter there. That was a weird little slide for Walter, though. I know it's late in the run. I know he hasn't taken tires, but entering the front stretch chicane like that, I don't think I've seen anybody get that loose trying to get on the brakes.
Battle for 11th now brewing. Playoff driver Mike Witt versus Byron Johnson in the number 81. They go through the infield section here, and Witt's really had such an up and down night, and he's gonna go widen into the grass. Johnson doesn't expect it, and he has to get out of the throttle as well. Battle for 11th brews with a non-playoff driver and a playoff driver as they go their way back to the oval, and Mike Witt almost goes around. He has to go full lock on the wheel to save that thing.
A little bit of Charlotte Rallycross. You always love to see it down the short little straight there. But Byron Johnson's going to fall way back here on Mike Witt. These last two spots outside of the top 10, the first two spots outside of the top 10, I should say, with 4 laps to go, still trying to be decided. Mike Witt under braking, very, very aggressive on the turn in there. I'm surprised that car stuck, but he did. It did in fact stick. So he's going to keep on going through the oval here. Very straightforward stuff for Mike Witt here, and sometimes that's hard to describe in good words.
4 laps left, and it'll be very quickly 3 laps left once Trent Dinkel comes back across the line. But what a race it has been for this 9 machine, and Acosta's not out of the realm yet. He is catching up. He's at 5.2 seconds, and he needs to catch at about a rate of 2 seconds per lap if he wants to catch up to Trent Dinkel and have a run at this race win. But I mean, any closer he can get is going to help out. As long as the 9 does make a mistake, then Abner Acosta is going to be right there looking for a race win. So he needs to try and still keep up, still try and keep as much a gap to the 9 as he possibly can.
And in the championship here for Season 4, we've been talking all night about the playoff standings, but there is still the individual Season 4 championship to fight for. This should not put Trent Dinkel in the championship lead with this win, because Regan has had such a great drive through the field. Regan will still be close enough to retake the championship lead. Jeff Hollingsworth, who was actually in a fantastic championship lead after a very, very consistent first 3 rounds, unfortunately isn't actually here tonight, so he's going to lose the championship lead. This will end up being his drop week. We'll see if Hollingsworth can continue to fight for the championship as we continue on through the season. Josh Conker as well, a driver who we look to be competitive here on the road courses, unfortunately not here because he's too busy racing real go-karts in Cincinnati and getting commentated by our old race spot buddy Taylor Burris. But hopefully we see Hollingsworth and Conker both back, and hopefully we get a 5-way fight for the championship, a 6-way fight for the championship once Abner Acosta finally catches up as well.
Hearing Mark Kalin received a black flag for getting too many incident points, and other than that, it's been a fairly uneventful race. And how about Chris Hudson sitting in 3rd? I mean, we haven't talked much about him tonight, but one of his best runs that he has had this season behind the wheel of that number 43. I mean, yes, looking at the gaps, 55 seconds to Trent Dinkel in the 9. Yeah, it doesn't sound good, but how good does 3rd place in a podium sound, especially when he would be the only driver other than Acosta and Trent Dinkel to survive being lapped in this race?
Yeah, I think Chris Hudson will be pretty happy with the podium there. Some very aggressive upshifts there, shaking the whole rig there. So clearly Chris Hudson doing some work there on the H pattern. But yeah, it's gonna be a great result for Chris Hudson. He's gonna be very, very happy with a third here, and there's some good tracks for Chris Hudson coming up, so maybe don't count him out, making a 7-way battle for the championship here in the upcoming 7 or 6 weeks. We watch Trent Dinkel here, just basically on his victory lap. He's going to meet Waldo Walden again. He's going to be kind of mystified. How on earth do I keep meeting Waldo Walden on track? How does he keep ending up in front of me? But he's going to take the white flag here. Waldo Walden's going to pull out of the way, and it's going to be a victory lap for Trent Dinkel. He could back off by 5 seconds here and still win this thing.
Just what an incredible run for the 9 that we have watched tonight. Don't think he did not lead a single lap tonight. He has led since the drop of the green flag, and there's the white flag, Joey. One final lap from the Charlotte Roval. Not only is the race official, but we are going to get back to the checkered flag, and that 9 private label team hype entry is looking at another race win this season.
It's just kind of incredible to see what Trent Dinkel has done over the past couple of seasons in the PRL. When I first started commentating PRL Cup races, when I first saw Trent Dinkel on the scene, you know, he was around, he was getting some good results, but he wasn't this driver we're seeing tonight. But over the course of the last couple seasons, he's been winning races. He had the best season of his career last season. He won 5 races, half of the races in 2022 Season 3. And now as we arrive in Season 4 here, he's taken the fight to Abner Acosta. He's beaten him at his own game. He wasn't able to beat Abner to the championship last season, but this has been potentially the most impressive race we've ever seen from Trent Dinkel in the Precision Racing League. And it is just an incredible story to see the development of this driver as he joins private label team hype through the final couple of oval corners, the final couple of bank curves here at the Charlotte Roval. Trent Dinkel has navigated the lap traffic. He's navigated 56 laps at the Charlotte Roval. He has been absolutely dominant. And for the 11th time in the Precision Racing League, Trent Dinkel is victorious. And Abner Acosta, on a road course that he might have been expected to win, has to settle for 6 seconds back in second. And look at that. Dinkel sets the fastest lap on the last lap. I think Nick Hunter told him to do that.
At a 1:18.7812. Just what a lap and what a race for the 9 of Trent Dinkel. One of the most deserved wins, I think we can safely say, all season long, Joey. Just dominating performance from the 9. He did not put a foot wrong tonight.
Won half the races last season. Maybe this is the season where he wins even more than half. He goes for some of those PRL records. But Chris Hudson here, just to exemplify that gap between Dinkel and Acosta and the rest of the field. This is Chris Hudson now coming to the finish through the front stretch chicane for the final time. It's been a great race for Chris Hudson as well in the Krispy Kreme entry. Brings it home in P3. Richard Regan Jr. has already finished because he is a lap down, and that's the last driver on the lead lap. Everybody's still got to bring it home. Mark Kalin, could have been a better day for him, but a couple of spins and a penalty ends with Mark Kalin in 15th, unfortunately. But Trent Dinkel, we're just going to keep repeating it about 15 more times until we finally get to talk to him. Absolutely dominant. Abner Acosta comes home in second after having some worse luck with the lapped cars, but Dinkel was just absolutely dominant in this race. Chris Hudson, a good podium for him and good for his playoff chances, ahead of Richard Regan Jr., who drove up from the 20s on the grid to finish 4th and take the championship lead. Josh Daniels was 5th, and then Sean Powell, Joe Hoggard, Skip Gandy, Tyler Justice, and Pat Harvey rounded out the top 10. 10th place, 2 laps down. 11th place went to Mike Witt, and Byron Johnson was right behind him. Mike Witt, of course, a playoff driver, so a good recovery drive for him. Steve Loving was 13th. Brandon Walter was disappointed in 14th, and Mark Kalin got a speeding penalty to go down to 15th. Waldo Walden went 3 laps down to 16th, and Charles Sumner, eliminated from the playoffs, was 17th. And then we start to get into the used car lot of heavily damaged cars. Richard Smith brought it to the end, but was 6 laps down. Eric Papineau went 9 laps down. I think we missed what happened to him, but Besaw, Christian, McDonald, Amasi, Guerra, Haag, Zemke, Long, and Clayton Ham all ran into assorted amounts of trouble, all got heavy damage on their vehicles. Trent Dinkel will talk to us. Abner Acosta will talk to us, but over at Private Label Team Hype Plan, they're being a little bit slow, so Josh, I'll let you speak first. Just kidding. Joe Hoggard has just shown up. We'll talk to him before we get to talk to our race winners. Joe Hoggard, thanks for showing up. P7 tonight. It's a pretty long race, 56 laps of the Charlotte Roval, but how was it for you?
It was okay. I mean, I just want to apologize to literally everybody for that turn 1 spin. I mean, I got my medicine by dropping back to like 27th or 28th and having to do the dirty work to get back to the front. But I feel really bad because I was in the wrong line and I couldn't save it. I tried everything I could to save it, and then I backed up because I thought I was clear and hit Steve Loving. So yeah, I really just wanted to apologize to everybody because this wasn't my best showing at all.
Still, even for not your best showing, I do have to look at the positives. P7 tonight, you were in a good position in the championship, I believe, coming into tonight. P9, so should still be the top 10 in the championship. 6 more weeks to go. Got a lot of tracks. It's all ovals for the rest of the season. What are you looking most forward to, and think you can keep it up for the rest of the season?
That's what I'm looking forward to. Is the goal at the beginning of this season was to just, when we talked about it before, was literally just to start racing in the top 10 consistently and showing that I can keep up and compete in this league. And so far, it's been a really good showing in this season for me. I'm happy because I don't think, aside from Talladega, I've finished outside the top 10 yet.
Well, we wish you good luck for the rest of the season, and maybe we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Joe Hoggard comes home in P7 with a few apologies for the rest of the field. Still waiting for Dinkle and Acosta, but we'll get on that quick. But we do have our third place finisher. Chris Hudson is with Josh.
Well, Chris, a pretty solid race for you, even though admittedly we didn't really talk about you too much being in third, but a podium finish, I know that's got to feel good for you and the team.
Yeah, I've had a pretty rough start to the season, so it was good to bring home a podium. It was, one of the loneliest podiums I've ever had in my life, so not a lot going on around me, but, I was just trying to, hit my marks and, trying to hit those lap times and just keep it out there, and, it worked out, so I'm super, super happy with third.
Well, it wasn't an eccentric third place, but it was a third place nonetheless. You, Acosta, and Trent were the only 3 to finish on the lead lap tonight. Trent had lapped everybody else from 4th on back in the field. So was this a bit of a statement race for you to say, hey, I'm still here and still a contender, even though, you did finish a full minute behind the number 9 machine?
Yeah, those guys were on fire. They've been on fire the last couple seasons. They've always been fast, but they've just been untouchable recently, and so much fun racing with them. It makes us all try to step up our game. So, I know this week I put in some extra laps just thinking about how fast I knew they were going to be. So, I guess it's a moral victory to at least not get lapped. So I'll take that as a win for myself.
Las Vegas coming up in 1 week's time. Where's your confidence level at as we go back to intermediates?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think, I like Vegas. I think it's a pretty fun track. So, looking forward to getting to work on it. I like my chances there. My team here love racing with Josh and Tim and Steve and Matt. We've all been working together a lot and trying to pick up the pace. So I'm hoping that we're going to come out in Vegas and make a statement there too.
Congratulations on your third place tonight, Chris. Go celebrate with you and the team.
All right, thanks, man.
Great to hear, Joey, from Chris Hudson. We mentioned a quiet third place, but a third place nonetheless, and a spot on the podium for him.
And we've got a little bit less quiet of a winner, I'm sure. Trent Dinkle, 6 seconds over Abner Acosta. You finally beat him on a road course, and what a race.
Yeah, about freaking time I beat him on a road course. Yeah, that was a super good race. I think the lap cars, unfortunately for Abner, helped me, but I can't complain about that too much, I guess. So, yeah, I don't really know. I'm pretty happy. Abner is insane on road courses, so it's nice to be able to, say that I can hang with them on the ovals and the road courses now.
Yeah, we saw you close to him when we went to Indy last season, when we went to Watkins Glen last season. You were all over the back of him, but what did it take tonight to finally jump over him, other than the lap cars, of course?
Well, I think me and him, we both probably had 8 or 9 plus hours of practice before the session opened up tonight. So, I think just a lot of practice, and even throughout the entire week, his overall best lap was a solid few tenths faster than mine, and a half second at some points, and I'd come home and be like, well, what in the hell, how am I going to gain this time back? But I think the track surface felt quite a bit different than what we had been practicing, and especially the backstretch chicane. It had no grip in the middle of the chicane, so it was hard to hit the curb and get the car to point back the other way. And I think we were both struggling with that just a little bit, and that might have helped a little to build a little gap over him at the end.
So what are you most looking forward to for the rest of the season? It's an eclectic mix of ovals, I guess. A lot of intermediates, a short track at Martinsville. What's going to happen for the rest of the season? Is this the championship season?
I hope so. I'm not looking forward to Phoenix and Martinsville. I can promise you that. But I absolutely love Homestead. Vegas is a little tricky, and then obviously I love Chicagoland. I know it's going to drive different in this car because of how bumpy the track is, and the car doesn't really like bumps too much. But I think we'll just keep working every week to put this private label team hype car on the top step.
I'm going to do something that I've never done before. I just thought of this. So we're going to talk to Abner next.
Okay.
If you had a question for Abner that we can ask him and put it behind your name, what would it be?
Oh God, how did it feel to lose the fastest lap on the last lap?
All right. Josh, you heard him. He said it, not me. We'll ask that to Abner. But for now, congrats on your win, Trent. We'll see you next week.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Trentalonius, Dinkalonius, victorious. Abner Acosta comes in next.
Well, Abner, first of all, he lost to Trent. His second place finish for you. Not that bad, but what more did you need out of that 5 machine?
I don't know. I felt like I kept getting caught in bad spots by lap cars every time I made some time on him, but still, even if I caught up to him, passing here is super difficult. So I don't know. I know I could have kept behind him, but yeah, I just needed to get my lap cars better. And then who knows if I being behind him, maybe I could have done something or not. Maybe he would have made a mistake. But yeah, I feel like that's what kind of got me was the lap cars, and I hit the wall on the quali coming up to the checkers. If not, I would have had pole. I think I had a 974. That also messed me up, but good race overall.
You came into tonight 66 points, good to the cut line. The second place is definitely not going to put you behind the 8 ball, but with Vegas and Homestead, 2 intermediates left, can you put it together well to lock yourself into the round of 8?
I'll try. Definitely, this has been a very bad season. The first 3 races I've gotten wrecked out pretty much. So I think this is the first race I actually sort of finished without any crazy damage or anything. Yeah, hoping to just stay consistent with this and just take it home and just get to the top 8.
And we have a fan question here from one Trent Dinkle. I think you might know him, but he wanted to know what it was like to lose the fastest lap on the final lap.
It was terrible because I was talking crap to him 4 laps before that. I beat his lap, and I didn't have any good laps at the end, and just the win plus that, it was a dagger. Definitely, I'm not gonna sleep tonight, but maybe I'll crash him next week.
Well, congratulations on your second place. We'll see you in Vegas in 1 week.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good run for Abner Acosta, Joey, but unfortunately only second place for the number 5.
And unfortunately, only 4th place for Richard Regan Jr. here, but fortunately, the championship lead coming at it tonight, and also fortunately, you made it up about something 20 spots tonight. How on earth did you do that?
I don't know. If you guys look back to last season at Watkins Glen, my wheel had a malfunction on lap 3 or 4, and I had to basically do the same thing there. So getting to practice at Watkins Glen last season on trying to get up through lap traffic. I shouldn't say lap traffic because obviously we're on the same lap, but trying to know where to put your car and be consistent and be focused in really helped for this race. And I didn't get any practice at all. I got maybe 3 laps before the session ticked over. I got home late, and so honestly, I'm not too mad with the 4th place.
What makes this place so difficult compared to other road courses? Because it seems like it's a unique challenge. We all know it's a unique challenge, but I guess specifically from your perspective, do you look for, or I don't know what word I'm looking for. I'm going to end that question right there. What do you think about the Charlotte Roval?
Honestly, I love this place. I haven't ran here in 2 years, so I wasn't really and like I haven't run here in the Cup car of the next gen yet, so I wasn't really sure how it was gonna translate. But the next gen feels really good here. Obviously, you hit the curbs a little too hard. It likes to jump the car up in the air and snap spin. Depends on how you hit the curb. But honestly, I really do like this place a lot. It's pretty similar to Watkins Glen for me because, you know, you really got to attack every corner here, like 10 tenths every lap. And like the more consistent you are, the faster you're going to be, and that really shows the up front guys here.
I'm going to make up for that last question, and I'll repeat, you are in the championship lead now, because unfortunately Jeff Hollingsworth wasn't here tonight, but still with your fourth place, you've held off Harvey and Dinkle. How does it feel to be in the championship lead after 4 weeks? We're really starting to get into the season now.
Yeah, it feels good. Don't know what it's going to be like with the drop week. Probably pretty tight. I don't know what the gap is right now, but definitely pretty good to be point leader right now, but obviously the ultimate goal is the yearly championship, so that's where my focus is right now.
All right, before we kick you out, championship leader, give a shout out to all of those Phase 2 Chassis Works teammates and sponsors.
For sure, I gotta thank Tyler Justice, Sean Powell, Luke Molly, Gearhead Coffee, Jay-Z Photography, Spotter and Crew Chief Respoke, awesome job again tonight on the pit strategy. Everyone at the PRL and you guys at RaceSpot.
Always a pleasure to broadcast Precision Racing League races. That was Richard Regan Jr. P4 tonight, Josh. A pretty long race tonight, but a show of dominance by Trent Dinkle and a new driver putting himself at the top of the road course power rankings here in the PRL.
I think a show of dominance is kind of underselling that a little bit, because I mean, it was every single lap. We did not have a different driver at the front of the field for any single lap tonight. It was always Trent Dinkle that led from flag to flag, led from the outset, and I don't think we're really done seeing that from Trent Dinkle this season. I think it's going to keep up, and I think we're really going to see him be, if not a championship contender, championship favorite as we continue this run in the playoffs.
Well, let's see if Trent can keep it up. Next week, we go to Las Vegas for the PRL NASCAR Cup Series. It's a 1.5 mile intermediate, not a super speedway where we necessarily think it'll really open up the field, but it certainly will open up the playing field a little bit more than the road course here. So we'll see what happens next week at Las Vegas. Same time, same place here on RaceSpot and VCO on Twitch. But there's more PRL action every single night other than Friday and Saturday. Tomorrow night on Monday, we've got the MX-5s and the GT4s. And then on Tuesday, we've got more action. And then on Wednesday, there's more action. And then Thursday, there's more action. And then we'll be back with you on Sunday. But whenever we see you next, we thank you for tuning in tonight. And from me, from Josh Lee, from our whistleblower, Nick Hunter, we thank you for tuning in. Until next time, so long.